Hello and welcome back to Vindication Sports. I know it's been a minute, but somehow, some way, I'm back. Your host Jackson Hester coming at you with a little bit of a breakdown of what I saw in the playing game. I just want to get through this because I think this has got enough interesting things to talk about in it for a whole video. I was initially just gonna go straight into like postseason prediction, but I ended up starting to write down notes about the Blazers clinching the final spot, and I basically realized like I've got enough to say about this game that I can just probably do this and then do another quick little analysis on what I think the postseason is going to end up looking like. But for this game, as I'm sure most of you guys know, it's the Trailblazers versus the Grizzlies. This happened, hours ago at this point, but it was a great game. It was exactly what everybody pretty much wanted. Just a great, competitive game that, even though the Grizzlies got out to like a really, really bad deficit early, they ended up basically being able to come all the way back and really be pushing in the end to where we needed to have some spectacular performances, by our Portland Trailblazers to make the playoffs and clinch this game. There was a lot of players who played extremely well on both sides, honestly. The game really started in a big man war. It was like Jonas Valanciunas versus Yusuf Nurkic. They were both absolutely popping off. Both of them had great games, and I'll talk about them a little bit further on in this segment when I get into like individual teams and what was working, what wasn't working on both teams. Most of the things on the teams were actually working, to be completely honest. But it started in a big man war. It was really cool to see like kind of that traditional style really pop up and run through, where they were really just trading big man buckets. It was kind of insane to see. Just funny. You don't really expect that kind of thing to happen in a modern game. But, of course, as we progressed through the game, the guard play became more and more important. Infinitely more important. Ja Morant had an absolute field day. Again, I'll talk about him just a little bit later. Obviously, all of the guards on Portland had spectacular games. Their backcourt is phenomenal, as I'm sure you all know. Now I'll just talk specifically about like the Grizzlies. That really were doing well. I mean, Ja Morant, I was talking about him a little bit earlier. He had 35 and 8. He had a few rebounds too. The kid's special. That's his career high in points. Period. He was really, really close to being able to lead a Grizzlies team that didn't even sniff the playoffs with veteran Marc Gasol and Mike Conley. I was like trying to remember Mike Conley's name. R.I.P. Mike Conley's superstar tenure, if that was ever really even a thing. And they lost Jaren Jackson Jr. So I think that if they had Jaren Jackson Jr. during this game, that they probably would have been able to win. I think they would have won more games in the bubble in general, and that this play-in game may have not even happened, or they would have been in the position where they could have only needed to win one of the two games. Like Portland was, where they really didn't have too much pressure on them. They could win today or win tomorrow. That was a really nice thing to have in the back of their head, even though I'm sure, even Terry Stotts said that he wanted to fit, like in the locker room, he said, let's finish this Saturday. And then that gives us to like another topic. I would really love to talk about the Suns not making it. They had a valiant effort. They didn't even lose a single game. In my opinion, they totally should have made the Grizzlies play the Suns in a one-off elimination game for a spot in the playoff series or in the play-in series. And even if that means pushing back all of the dates of the games, I don't even care. Do it. It's totally worth it. It would have been A+ TV, A+++ TV, but instead we're completely robbed of that historic moment. Whatever, the bubble's awesome. Devin Booker, he's great. I just a little tangent on Devin Booker, but back to the kind of disappointing Grizzlies because they were pretty far in the 8th seed. That all the credit in the world to the Trailblazers, but it's absolutely crazy that the Grizzlies just really couldn't win a couple of games. I don't recall exactly what their record was in the bubble, but I don't think it was particularly good. But the future is extremely bright. Obviously, John Morant, he's the clear-cut rookie of the year in my favor, and in my opinion, he's the rookie of the year favorite. But I think people argue Zion Williamson, and I think that's kind of erroneous because they're both in the West. John Morant just had a better team. He played the whole season. There's absolutely no reason why you'd want Zion on your team over John Morant at this point. Zion's obviously shown a lot of strength and a lot of superstar potential, but at least John Morant's coach isn't fired, so you can always tell how bad or good a year has been based on that. And I would say John Morant's coach is pretty exceptional, and maybe that's having an influence here. I think Alvin Gentry's a pretty good coach. I don't think that he was necessarily at fault for what happened this season. But now we're just kind of getting into a little bit of a more robust discussion of those last few teams. But anyway, I just want to go back to saying the Grizzlies really had an amazing year. I think their coach is a coach of the year candidate. I can't remember right off the top of my head. Hold on, I actually need to look this up. Excuse the disrespect, Taylor Jenkins. I think Taylor Jenkins is he's a coach of the year candidate. I didn't remember his name. He's not particularly memorable. I don't think he's really super animated or super high key. I mean, Nick Nurse made a kind of a meme of himself in the postseason by doing all that crazy stuff on TV and Drake rubbing his shoulders and stuff. But Taylor Jenkins doesn't have any Drake clout quite yet. We might see that come in. Further down the line, we know Drake is obviously going to bandwagon onto the John Morant train eventually. He'll be wearing a John Morant jersey. I know he wore the Zion jersey before most people knew who Zion was, but don't worry. Drake is an eternal switch-upper, so we will see him rocking that Ja jersey eventually. I can just about guarantee it, if there's not already pictures of him in a Ja jersey, which there probably are. I mean, let's face it. If I were Drake, I'd have a Ja jersey. There's just no doubt about that. He's a transcendent talent. He's really going to take this team to the playoff. The city should be absolutely thrilled to have him. I think he's probably one of the top 2 or 3 young talents in the entire league. I think him, Luka Doncic, Trae Young, I think is kind of in that category too. I might be getting ahead of myself on Trae Young. And Zion, obviously, he's in that category of that next generation of young star that really is going to be propelling the NBA forward. I really don't see these guys as great players yet, transcendent players yet, to where they are really pushing to being the top 5 player in the league or one of the best at their particular position. But I think that Ja Morant at some point will win an MVP. I think he's just that kind of player. I also think that, Zion Williamson will have years where people will argue he maybe is the best player in basketball. I think that he's that type of player. Trae Young might be one of the best point guards in the league, potentially after Stephen Curry retires, Damian Lillard retires. Trae Young's about 30 years old. That's going to be kind of interesting to see how he develops. Steph Curry didn't win back-to-back MVPs until later in his career. I really feel like being a player like that, you kind of need to progress in the league for a while before you're really ready to, cook folks fully. And Trey's already cooking folks. Same thing with Luka. I think Luka might be able to win an MVP. And this is the problem I always have. It's giving away too many MVP awards, but because I feel like there's so many just solid players. But anyway, my final thoughts on the Grizzlies, I suppose. Grizzlies and kind of the whole bottom section of the Western Conference right there. They have an absolutely incredible future. They've got great assets, and I think that they absolutely would have made the postseason and lost to the Lakers in the first round if they had Jaren Jackson Jr. not been injured. But it is what it is, and they really were up against a cream of the crop Western Conference team, a team that made it to the Western Conference Finals last year, a team that beat the Nuggets in the playoffs, beat the Thunder with Russell Westbrook and Paul George in the playoffs. These are not a joke. These Trailblazers, Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, Yusuf Nurkic, they're all incredible. They all had amazing performances. Damian Lillard, he was a little bit quiet this game. I'm not going to lie. I really expect more from Damian Lillard in these type of elimination games. I expect him to absolutely take over. But he had a lot of help this game, to be completely honest. A lot of his teammates pick up the slack. and that's really, really awesome to see. Damian Lillard, like I said, it was a little quiet, 31 and 10. Those amazing numbers, 31 and 10. Damian Lillard, I think, is a top 5 NBA player right now with all the injuries. To me, it's a debate between him and Anthony Davis in my top 5. We can go. I might go over it in the future of my top NBA players, but I think that Damian Lillard has inserted himself as the best point guard around right now. If you don't count LeBron as a point guard, I don't think there's much to argue. Steph Curry's injured. Chris Paul is up there, but I don't know if you want to call James Harden potentially a point guard because he handles the ball so much. But with Russell Westbrook, that's kind of changed a little bit again. It's interesting to see how everything will play out in the end with all of that. But I really do think Damian Lillard's inserted. He won Bubble MVP for a reason. He absolutely deserved it. CJ McCollum absolutely had a really loud 29 points. And the difference between Damian Lillard's quiet 31 and his loud 29 is that Damian Lillard got his through the course of the game, going to the line, getting a layup here or there. He had a big poster at some point in the game. I saw that. Damian Lillard was just putting on kind of a show overall, assists everywhere. Just, getting his through the course of the game. CJ McCollum had a few plays at the end, like at least 5 of those points were absolutely crucial with about 4 minutes left on the clock. He crossed up a Grizzlies defender and sank a deep 3. I believe it was Ja Morant, and then he took him down to the post and hit a fadeaway jumper on the elbow, and it was just beautiful. Broken back CJ McCollum absolutely splashing. Just big-time buckets all through the fourth quarter for CJ. And Yusuf Nurkic really kept him in the game early. They couldn't really get their threes to fall. Dame, I believe, hit a couple step-back threes early in the game, or maybe it was just one. But I know he was scoring early. But Yusuf Nurkic really held him down. He absolutely looked like an all-star this game, in my opinion. The center pool is extremely shallow. But I don't see how 21 or 22 and 21 is not an all-star center. He's playing absolutely out of his mind. He's splashing threes. He's getting every single board he needs to get. He's coming on extremely strong in this restart, and if he can keep up this kind of play, the sky's the limit, really. But it was actually a very not thought of hero that ended up daggering the end of this game. Aside from, Carmelo Anthony actually got a catch and shoot corner 3, and he drilled it like Carmelo Anthony. Hoodie Melo has finally blossomed into the role player he was always meant to be. He had 21 points, including that big 3 at the end. Carmelo's been averaging, I think, like 17 points in the bubble now, because he had about a 21-point game. He had a 21-point game in this last one, and he absolutely hit the big dagger 3. The funny thing is he's gonna play LeBron for the first time in his postseason career, and he's gonna be a role player for it. And LeBron's still gonna be in his prime, so we'll have to see how all of this unfolds. I think it's really kind of a poetic thing that Carmelo hit that big game winner, that big dagger. It wasn't really a game winner, but it was the dagger, or it was the dagger, and then Grayson Allen had a chance to make the game within 2, and he missed a free throw or something like that. Ja Morant came down and splashed a 3, but it was like Carmelo had already kind of broken their back at that point. Ja's 3 was not really good enough because it was like 4 seconds left, and it's like, not really gonna work. It was absolutely a great game. It came right down to the wire. And it really felt like the first taste of postseason basketball. I haven't really been talking about the bubble because, to be honest, the bubble's been kind of not the best to watch. Some games have been really competitive and people have really cared about them. But for the most part, the games have been, in my opinion, lower quality than like a regular regular season game. The intensity is now ratcheted up. They've really been pulling the punches on teams that one of the conferences locked up like a week prior to the other conference, so no one cared in the other conference, and like the Wizards beat the Celtics, and just this is just not something you'd see in a regular season because they'd be like, oh no, we might be able to get to 60 wins. It's like, no, that's not even a thing, so who cares about that? Anyway, Trailblazers make it into the postseason, and the Grizzlies are eliminated. In Devin Booker we trust, but it turns out Damian Lillard is the true Lord Commander of the bubble. So, anyway, I have been Jackson Hester, and this was Vindication Sports. I'll see you guys next time.